Have you ever wondered what it feels like to be on the brink of extinction, your very existence hanging by a thread in the vast cosmos? I never thought I would find myself contemplating such a question, but here I was, staring up at the ominous silhouette of the Dominator's fleet casting shadows over the neon-lit streets of Shibuya. The sky, once a canvas of serene blue, was now a chaotic tapestry of dark metal and flickering lights. As the reality of our impending doom sank in, I felt a chill creep down my spine, reminding me that this was no mere dream, but the beginning of a nightmare. I am Kenji Tanaka, an astrobiologist driven by an insatiable thirst for knowledge and an unyielding belief that we are not alone in this universe. In my years of research, I had always sought signs of extraterrestrial life, but nothing could have prepared me for the day when the skies darkened with the arrival of our conquerors. The Dominators, with their advanced technology and ruthless efficiency, had descended upon Tokyo with a singular goal: the subjugation of humanity. As panic spread through the streets, I found solace in my work, leading a team from the Proteus Initiative, a secret government organization tasked with investigating inexplicable phenomena. Our latest mission had taken us to Aokigahara, the infamous Sea of Trees, where whispers of ancient mysteries and ghostly legends haunted the air. The forest, dense and foreboding, was a place that thrummed with an energy I had never experienced before. It felt alive, as if the trees themselves were guardians of secrets long buried. We ventured into the heart of the forest, armed with cutting-edge technology and an unshakable resolve to uncover the truth. But the deeper we delved, the more I felt an unsettling presence, as if unseen eyes were watching our every move. Memories of my troubled past flickered in my mind: the loss of my sister to a mysterious illness, the guilt of not being able to save her, the desire to prove myself to a world that often dismissed my dreams. It was this pain that had driven me to seek answers among the stars, but now it felt as if the forest was echoing my own grief back at me, amplifying my fears. Then, amidst the gnarled roots and whispering winds, we stumbled upon it, a relic of an ancient civilization, half buried in the underbrush. It pulsed with an otherworldly energy, the air around it vibrating with purpose. As I knelt to examine the artifact, a flicker of hope ignited within me. Could this be the key to turning the tide against the Dominators? My heart raced with possibilities, but a nagging doubt tugged at my mind. What if we were meddling with forces beyond our comprehension? As we began to decipher the messages etched into the artifact, a sense of urgency enveloped us. We learned of the Protetores, an ancient race that had once inhabited this very land, their wisdom encapsulated in this object they had left behind. A warning, a signal of resistance meant for those who could wield its power against the Dominators. I felt a wave of responsibility wash over me. If we could unlock its secrets, perhaps we could protect humanity from annihilation. But just as the first glimmer of hope emerged, the weight of my decision loomed larger than ever. Should I risk everything to harness this power or warn the world of the impending doom? It was a choice fraught with peril, and I knew that whatever path I chose, the consequences would be profound. But when night fell, something inexplicable happened. As night fell, the forest took on an eerie quality, shadows stretching and twisting in ways that defied logic. The pulsating artifact before me seemed to resonate with the darkness, casting a faint luminescence that illuminated the faces of my team, my colleagues, my friends. There was Aiko, our tech specialist, her eyes wide with a mixture of awe and fear, and Haruto, the mission's lead engineer, who had always been the rational one among us, now struggling to mask his growing anxiety. Then there was Hana, a linguist, with an uncanny ability to decode ancient scripts, her fingers trembling as they traced the markings on the artifact. What if we're awakening something we can't control? Haruto's voice trembled, breaking the tense silence. I could see the conflict brewing within him, his scientific mind clashing with the instinctive urge to flee. "Or what if this is our only chance?" I replied, my voice steadier than I'd felt. "The Dominators are coming. We have to try." Aiko stepped closer, her brow furrowed. "But what if the Protatories were wiped out because they tried to harness this power? What makes us different?" I could hear the tremor in her voice. The fear was palpable, a thick fog that hung over us all. But it wasn't just the danger of the Dominators that haunted me. It was my own past, the memories of my sister's laughter, now replaced by the hollow ache of loss. I had dedicated my life to understanding the cosmos, but in that moment, surrounded by friends, I felt the weight of my choices. Each pulse of the artifact seemed to echo my internal struggle. Could I really take the risk of using this power without knowing the full extent of its consequences? As we stood there, the atmosphere shifted. A low rumble vibrated through the ground, sending a shiver down my spine. The trees quivered as if warning us. And then, without warning, a blinding flash erupted from the artifact. I stumbled back, shielding my eyes. When I looked again, the air shimmered, and figures began to materialize. Ethereal beings, cloaked in a soft glow, their features indistinct, yet undeniably powerful. "Who dares disturb the Protatories?" a voice boomed, resonating within my mind, rather than through the air. I could feel the weight of their gaze, and my heart raced. We seek knowledge," I stammered, my voice barely above a whisper. "We need to protect our world from the Dominators." The figures exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. Then, one stepped forward, its presence commanding and ancient. "Knowledge comes at a price. You must prove yourselves worthy or face the consequences of your folly." I turned to my team, their faces mirroring my own turmoil. Aiko's eyes were wide with wonder, but there was a flicker of fear beneath. Haruto looked resolute, though I could see the toll of uncertainty etched on his brow. Hana's fingers clutched the artifact, her mind racing with the implications of what lay ahead. "What are we supposed to do?" Aiko breathed, her voice filled with trepidation. Before I could answer, the ground shook violently, and a rift opened, nearby revealing a swirling void. I felt the pull of it, a dark whisper calling to me, promising power, but at a cost I couldn't yet fathom. The Dominators were not just a threat from the sky. They were woven into the very fabric of this moment, and it was clear that our encounter with the Protatories had awakened something far more dangerous. I knew then that we were no longer just a team of scientists. We were humanity's last hope, trapped in a struggle that transcended time and space. The choices we made in the coming moments could either save us or doom us all. As I looked into the eyes of my team, the stakes had never felt higher. I felt the burden of leadership settle on my shoulders, and I knew that whatever path we chose, it would lead us into the heart of a conflict that would redefine our very existence. As I stood before the Protatories, the weight of their gaze bore down on me like an avalanche, and I felt a rush of memories flooding back, visions of my sister, her laughter echoing in the hollow spaces of my mind. She had always believed in the extraordinary, in powers beyond comprehension. I had dismissed her dreams, focusing instead on the tangible, the scientific. And yet here I was, staring into the abyss of the unknown, about to plunge into the very depths of the mysteries we had sought to understand. The ground shook again, stronger this time, and I stumbled, grasping at the artifact for support. Aiko's hand shot out to catch mine, her eyes wide with panic. "What's happening?" she cried, her voice rising above the growing chaos. But it wasn't just the artifact that was reacting. It was me. Fragments of memories I thought long buried surged forth, their vividness blurring the lines between past and present. I could see my sister's face, but it twisted in anguish, her eyes pleading for me to understand something I had missed all those years ago. I remembered the day she vanished, her obsession with ancient relics, leading her into the very heart of this forest. Had she known something I didn't? Had she too encountered the Protatores? Focus. Haruto's voice broke through the haze, but my mind was racing in circles. We need a plan. The Protatores loomed larger, their forms shifting as if they were made of smoke and shadows. The balance must be restored, they intoned, their voices harmonizing in a chilling melody. You are intertwined with the fate of the world, but your anguish clouds your judgment. Anguish? What do you mean? I demanded, the words spilling out before I could hold them back. What do you know about me? The center figure stepped closer, its presence overwhelming. Your sister sought the truth, and in her search, she touched the fabric of what lies beyond. You have inherited her burden, her legacy. The dominators are drawn to your pain, your fear. A chill ran through me, and I realized the implications of their words. My sister's disappearance had not been a random tragedy. It had been a catalyst, an awakening. What did she discover? I asked, my voice trembling. She found the rift, the Protatores replied, their gaze piercing through my defenses. And it has been waiting for a descendant to make the choice. Choice? Aiko echoed, her voice trembling. What choice? Before the Protatores could answer, the rift beside us pulsed violently, and a dark figure emerged, one that sent a wave of dread coursing through my veins. It was a manifestation of my worst fears, an avatar of the Dominators, its eyes glowing with malice, and I realized with horror that it was feeding off my memories, my grief. I turned to my team, desperation clawing at my heart. We need to act. This is not just about us anymore. It's about everything. But as I spoke, I could see the shadows of doubt creeping into their eyes. Aiko's fingers trembled, and Haruto's expression shifted from resolve to uncertainty. The bond we had built was fraying, and I felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on me like a vice. Will we be able to control what we awaken? Hana whispered, her voice barely audible. Or will we become the very monsters we fear? In that moment, I realized the truth was more complex than I had ever imagined. The past was not just a shadow, it was a living entity entwined with our present. And the choices we faced were not just about survival, they were about confronting the ghosts of our history and the dark legacy that tied us together. As the Dominator's form solidified, I could feel the ground shifting beneath us, the very fabric of reality fraying. We were teetering on the edge of chaos, and it was clear that our next decision would determine not only our fate, but the fate of everything we held dear. The stakes had never been higher, and the clock was ticking down. I could feel the weight of the Dominator's gaze, a palpable force that clawed at my insides. It was a reflection of my own fears, a mirror that captured the pain I had tried so hard to bury. The shadows writhed around it, whispering my sister's name, taunting me with the memories I had long sought to escape. No, I shouted, my voice cracking, but it felt like a feeble protest against a storm. Aiko, Haruto, Hana! I turned to my friends, desperation clawing at my throat. We can't let it take control. We have to stand together. But as I looked into their eyes, I saw something that chilled me deeper than the darkness surrounding us. Doubt. Aiko's grip on my hand slackened, and I could see the flicker of fear overshadowing her resolve. What if we can't? She whispered, her voice trembling. Then we fight, I yelled, the words bursting forth like a roar. The Dominator surged forward, a wave of malevolence crashing over us, and as I braced myself, I felt the artifact in my grip pulse in response, resonating with my emotions. It was as if it recognized my struggle, my fear, and became a tangible expression of my defiance. But just as I felt a spark of hope igniting within me, Haruto stepped back, his eyes wide and glistening with uncertainty. I don't want to lose. Anyone else? He said, his voice barely above a whisper. What if we unleash something we can't control? Don't you see? I implored, my heart racing. This is our moment. This is what we've prepared for. If we don't confront it now, we may lose everything, including each other. Hana took a shaky breath, her resolve wavering. But what if confronting it means becoming it? The shadows swirled ominously at her words, feeding off our hesitation. and I could feel the Dominator closing in, sensing our weakness. "Listen," I shouted, desperation sharpening my tone. "We're not just fighting this creature, we're fighting our past, our fears, and the legacy of my sister. We can't let her dreams die in vain." At that moment, the Dominator lunged, a dark tendril, reaching for me, and instinct kicked in. I raised the artifact, its energy flaring to life. "No!" I cried, channeling every ounce of grief, every memory of my sister's laughter into the artifact. The light surged, pushing back against the darkness, and I felt the collective energy of my friends igniting alongside mine. "Together!" I shouted, and as our hands clasped around the artifact, I felt a surge of power. The light expanded, illuminating the shadows and forcing the Dominator to recoil. "We are not alone!" In that decisive moment, I realized our connection was our greatest strength. The fears that had threatened to tear us apart had instead forged an unbreakable bond. And as the energy radiated outward, I knew we were on the brink of something monumental. The rift pulsed violently, and I felt the weight of destiny pressing down on us all. The Dominator shrieked, a sound that echoed through the forest, and in that instant, I understood the choice before me: embrace the light or succumb to the dark. With my heart racing, I made my decision, knowing that the fate of everything, my sister's legacy, our world, hinged on what came next. As the light burst forth, engulfing the shadows and the Dominator, I felt the raw energy coursing through me, an electric current of hope and fear, pain and strength. The tendril that had reached for me evaporated into a cloud of dark mist, shrieking as it retreated from the brilliance we had summoned. The shadows began to dissipate, unraveling like a frayed thread, yet I could feel the remnants clawing at the edges of my mind, whispering doubts that lingered like a haunting melody. When the light finally faded, I collapsed to my knees, gasping for breath, the artifact slipping from my fingers and clattering against the forest floor. I could feel the weight of my body heavy and exhausted, but it was the emotional toll that left the most profound mark. I had faced the darkness, but at what cost? My heart ached, not just for the victory we had achieved, but for the scars that would undoubtedly linger, both seen and unseen. I glanced at my friends. Aiko was on the ground beside me, her face pale but resolute, the flicker of fear replaced by a spark of determination. She curled her fingers around the artifact, and I saw the bruises forming on her arms, a testament to the battle we had fought. "We did it," she whispered, though her voice trembled with uncertainty. But what now? Haruto was still standing, his back straight, but his eyes haunted. "I thought this would be the end," he murmured, staring into the dissipating shadows. "But I feel like something more is waiting, something worse." His words sent a shiver down my spine, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the Dominator was merely a pawn in a much larger game. Hana remained silent, her gaze distant, as if she were searching for something that had slipped through her fingers. "What if it wasn't just a monster?" she finally said, her voice barely audible. "What if it was a warning, a message?" I could see the gears turning in her mind, and I felt a knot of anxiety tighten in my chest. The darkness might have receded, but the questions it left behind were insistent, pressing against my thoughts. As I gathered my breath, I looked back at the forest, where the shadows had retreated, but not vanished. "We can't stop here," I said, forcing my voice to steady. "There's more to uncover, more connections to my sister's legacy. We need to understand what we just faced." The air felt charged with unresolved mysteries, and as I stood up, I noticed a flicker in the remnants of the darkness, a glimmering object that had not been there before. I hesitated, then turned to my friends. "What do you think that is?" Aiko squinted, the shadows still swirling around her like a protective cloak. "It could be a clue," she said, her curiosity piqued despite her exhaustion. Haruto nodded slowly, the doubt still etched in his features. "Or it could be another trap." But even as he spoke, I felt the pull of the unknown, the call to dive deeper into the mysteries that surrounded us. Whatever had been unleashed was not merely a creature of darkness, it was a harbinger of something far greater. With a shared glance that spoke volumes, we stepped forward together, knowing that the journey was far from over. The scars we bore would remind us of our struggle, but the bonds we forged would guide us through the shadows ahead. The forest whispered secrets, and as I reached for the glimmering object, I felt a mixture of trepidation and exhilaration. We were on the brink of uncovering truths that could change everything, and I was ready to face whatever lay beyond. As my fingers brushed against the glimmering object, a surge of energy coursed through me, igniting a fire of determination deep within. It was not just a clue, it felt like a key, a connection to the shadows we had faced and the legacy my sister had left behind. But as I grasped it, a familiar weight pressed upon my shoulders, heavier than before. I understood in that moment that the path ahead would demand sacrifices. "What if we have to give something up?" I murmured, the words escaping before I could reconsider. The haunting thought lingered in the air, filling the space between us with a sense of foreboding. Aiko's gaze met mine, and in her eyes, I saw both fear and understanding. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice trembling. I took a deep breath, the truth settling uncomfortably in my chest. We might need to sacrifice something precious to unlock the next step, maybe even a part of ourselves. Haruto stepped forward, his expression resolute. "If it means keeping the darkness at bay, then we must do it. We've already lost so much." Hana remained silent, the weight of her own losses evident in her gaze. I knew we were all grappling with the same reality. The lingering shadows had taught us that light comes at a price. I steeled myself, realizing that to move forward, I might have to relinquish not just my fears, but also the very essence of who I was. As we stood there, the forest felt alive, whispering secrets that echoed of sacrifice and rebirth. I took a deep breath, ready to embrace whatever that meant. With one final glance at my friends, I nodded. We would do this together, whatever the cost. The shadows stirred, and I felt the pull of the supernatural as I channeled the energy from the artifact. In that moment, I prepared to offer a part of myself for the greater good, a sacrifice that would echo through time. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Share with your friends so they can also embark on this mystery-filled adventure. And leave a comment below telling us your favorite part or what kind of ending you'd like to see in a future story. Your thoughts mean the world to us as we venture deeper into the unknown.